Cansier, one of the three founding partners of Marc and Chantal. And I think you know us more as a branding and creative agency. And today is the first time we're actually going to reveal one of the new areas we're stepping in, which is research. And this is our first research report since we started developing Insight about 2 years ago. So maybe I think some of you are familiar with our salon discussion that we've been holding for now more than 2 years. And we thought that we had to develop insights in order to feed our creative process and also to respond, obviously, better to the need of our clients. And as we went along, we thought we had to be even more serious about it and really develop our research capabilities in partnership with some research company. And we see ourselves, we want to find a place basically between research, our clients, and creativity. And kind of being a catalyst for doing research that are maybe more inspiring, more meaningful, and we hope we can demonstrate that with this first project. So, why the first subject we choose for this this research is travel and millennials in China. Travel because we work a lot with the hospitality industry. As you might know, we work with Swire Hotels to develop their first brands, Opposite House, East Hotel. And we are currently working with Marriott on developing brands specifically for Asia for their lifestyle categories, such as autograph collection. And millennials because, well, just because numbers, really, and because they're fun to work with. So this is, I'm going to show you a few pages of a report itself, some extracts, and then make sure we have your email address, everybody, and tomorrow we'll send you a link to the full, almost 80-page report. So as you can see, millennials, which is a broad definition of people born between the post-80s to 2000, basically. There's no actual number or date. But roughly speaking, we're talking about, if we look just at 20 to 29 years old, 230 million people. Okay? So that's a huge group, very active already. And out of this, I mean, they are the dominating force traveling abroad China, right? And if you look at China altogether, in 2013, we hit almost 100 million of Chinese travelers going abroad. And we don't have a number yet, but 2014 will be over 100 million. And the projections are probably 200 million by 2020. Okay. In comparison, there's 30 million Americans traveling every year. So you already see that just our group, millennial, is probably more than the whole American population traveling abroad. So the reason for this research is also that we think that, I mean, we know that this group, particular group, will redefine the global travel industry in the coming years, not just in China, just in Asia, but globally. Okay, so that's the introduction, and then I'm going to pass to Danny from Acom, who's going to go through some of the research and findings of the report that we conducted with Acorn, our partner. And after that, I'll come back and I'll talk more about the insight and the fun thing we've done with our with our Chinese millennials. Danny, thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Danny. I'm actually Singaporean, but I've spent the last 12 years in China, especially in Shanghai. So today is my honor to be here to present some of the findings. But first, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce Acom Marketing Research International. Okay, Hong Kong is only one of our offices. We are based in 10 countries all over in Asia. And next year is going to be our 30th anniversary. So we've been around for quite a while. Okay. So beyond our markets, we've actually also conducted research beyond Asia, in the Americas, as well as in Eastern Europe, even in the Middle East. Okay. And one of our key characteristics of Acorn is it has always been a word-of-mouth referrals from our clients, whom some of them have been with us for a long time. Okay, so what defines Acorn? Okay, we are a bespoke agency that specializes in the following areas. We deal a lot in strategic brand planning. Okay, also what we would use, some of the tools could be a forward brand positioning research. This has been a methodology that we've been used in 30 over countries over the world. Okay, as well as brand product development, as well as a lot of in-depth get under your skins research where we would want to go beyond consumer behavior to find out what other opportunities that we could unravel from them. Okay, and in our business areas, we have been attention to detail. Okay, be it a single country or multi-country studies, no single geographic location will be treated differently. As much detail because each of the countries will have their own challenges, so the same amount of effort will be put in. Okay, and next is translating client priorities in the research process, which means that we will not neglect our clients' business issues or objectives when we are cluttered with the research methodologies and the other nitty-gritty stuff. So we'll make sure that at the end, at the back of the mind, the business objectives of our clients are always being met in the research, in the whole research process. Okay. Later on, after this, I will share some of the extracts from the report. Okay, and just to reiterate some of these research specifications. Okay, for this research, we actually conducted it qualitatively via focus groups. Okay, and a total of 6 groups were conducted in Shanghai, Beijing, and in Guangzhou. Who did we speak to then? First is the graduates and undergraduates, so 18 to 25. University students or freshly grad. One key thing to note is that we selected them of 80,000 RMB of monthly household income, which is considered to be pretty high in China at this stage. Okay, so in short, in China, we call them the 富二代 or 富一代, which is the second generation rich. Okay, the other target would be young professionals, 24 to 30, okay, with a monthly household income of 12,000. Okay, and then both groups share this commonality that they must have got non-group travel experience, which means that they will go on their own, in short, FITs. Okay. Okay, so from the beginning, how do they actually start booking? As we know, China is in the internet age. So internet has always been an important role when they do booking. Okay, so for these target segments, they would have gone by the travel agents. So some of the apps they would use is Agoda, Airbnb, Booking.com for hotels. Okay, and then whereas for air tickets, they would tend to go to local sites like China. Okay, because both Ctrip and China will enable you to do comparisons between different airlines to look for the best deals or whichever suits their timing. Okay, so so there's a difference between how they go about accommodation and in terms of tickets. Okay. In terms of planning, there are 3 preferred sources. One of them is the internet, publications, as well as word of mouth. So back to internet, portal sites, travel diaries, and itinerary reviews are important because they tend to rely on what other people have experienced, be it good or bad. So they try to plan travel strategies in order to make best use of the time they have in each location. Okay, so one of them is mafengwo.com, translated means the hornet's nest. So inside this, it's a portal site. You get a lot of reviews. People will share their different experiences, or within this budget, where could you go with this amount? So they rely a lot on this. Okay, Ctrip most people might be familiar with it. It's one of the first portal sites where you could book both travel and hotels. And now they have gone onto attraction sites, tickets to different parks. So they're providing a very holistic service. Okay, publications will still be travel magazines or Lonely Planet. Okay, and peers and word of mouth is still one of the most influential source of inspiration of where to go. Now with the extensive and intensive use of social networking websites, and especially WeChat, which is like dominating the Chinese market, they could be sharing their travel tips and experiences as and go, sort of a real-time sharing experience. That's why some of my colleagues don't add me, because I would nag at them, why do I keep on seeing where you are going? Okay. Okay, so ingredients of a memorable trip. Actually, from the whole study, we found actually there are 2 or 3. We could put it in that way. One of them is to go out and to be enjoying the local culture and people. So they could be saying that we want to understand the different mannerisms and habits, especially in a relaxed way. Okay, to savor local food, as well to rest and connect with your loved ones. For example, a slow-paced romantic encounter to deepen relationship with loved ones. Okay, to have a happy and pleasant trip, to relax and forget all the stress. Okay. On saying that, we also tested the idea of what makes an ideal trip. Okay, we found that there were 4 key elements, which is relaxation, freedom, immersion, and especially is either romance or friendship. So for example, relaxation, we have always known that it is a key driver for going on a travel, but relaxation tends to manifest in different forms. Okay, one form is to be leaving all your daily matters, your mundane life behind and getting a good rest and recharge. Or it could be coming in the form of peace and quiet and close to nature and doing activities with friends. So that's one relaxation. Freedom. Freedom relies in 2 dimensions. Freedom of time and space. In time is to be carefree, not to be away from your daily commitments and restrictions, okay? And to be of space is to be away from the bustling city and be in the arms of Mother Nature. So it's another dimension. Immersion. Immersion is back to one of the key benefits where we talked earlier. It's about getting an in-depth understanding of different cultures and different customs of the destinations, especially in the last 5 years, where the whole travel industry in China has boomed, especially to outbound going, because of different political ties up with different countries. For example, the latest is the US issuing a 10-year visa for Chinese travelers, and the number of countries that are in the EU accepting Chinese tourists is also going up. In the last year, 5 million Chinese tourists actually visited Japan, with an estimation of 2,000 US for expenditure. So we can see that the Chinese outbound market is going to be growing in the next coming years. Okay, so friendship and romantic and romance, ideal trip to be shared with loved ones or with friends, so the whole experience will be enhanced. Later in the presentation and the report, we will share a bit more on these different elements. Okay. Next, we'll come to some of the themes and accommodation choices that we tested. So in terms of holiday themes, altogether we tested 6 of them, and these are the top 3. And for holiday concepts, in terms of hotel, we actually had 5, and these are the top 3. So for holiday themes, it's about adventure trail, European classic, a feel-good retreat. And for hotel concepts, it will be a local homestay, luxury hotel, and design hotel. Okay. Next, I'll go on to the different themes. First, just a bit of explanation on what adventure trail actually talks about. It is about being outdoors and to be in touch with the unspoiled nature. So, and what we found out was that a trip to the outdoors proved to be the most appealing across the 2 segments. Why? For the young professional, is to get away from the bustling life, from the pressure of work, to be able to clear their minds and lungs, to be in nature. Okay. Then for the wealthier ones, what we call the second generation rich, they have similar motivations, but they are looking for something more exotic. It could be visiting the safari, it could be having a chance to live on the forest canopy, or even a hot air balloon, now especially in Turkey, if I'm not wrong. Okay, and finally, okay, so what happened is, even though with all the hoo-ha with being in nature, they're still concerned with safety. It's still with caution. Why? There are several reasons, but besides being physically capable of being outdoors with the pampered life that they are living with, they would also want to make a point that they want to only embark on such a trip with a trusted and reputable operator. Because if anything happens, it's important that somebody be able to help them back to civilization. Okay. Next, European classics. Okay, European classics, in the concept, we actually talk about different cultures, art, food, and shopping. So now to these Chinese travelers, it actually ticks in all of the boxes. It actually fulfills of what they are looking for. Okay, if you could see that, now some of them are talking about it's a special place for history, culture, like China, they have a long heritage. So they want to make a comparison with mainland China. So for the wealthier group, it is about trying to be more cultured, experiencing the subtle luxury, which now we are talking about is called the low profile luxury, or 低调的奢华. Okay, it's about not flaunting, but being to be more sophisticated, to be seen sophisticated. Okay, and also, okay, and however, on the other hand, European tours are very popular now because it's one of the EU 15 countries where they accept Chinese travelers. Okay, so now they want to distinguish themselves from the masses, because what they think is always being on the bus, getting down for the trip, so it's sleeping on the bus, getting down for photos and back under the bus, next thing. So it's becoming very taxing, and you don't really get to see a lot of things at your own time and pace. So they are looking at actually going to less travel destinations, okay, less people, okay, and also staying in a longer in different locations. So they are able to immerse to find out more about the different locations. So now the norm is to be exploration, as well as to understand the culture and the local specificities. Last one on teams is Feel Good Retreat. Very popular because of the hectic lifestyle they are living, especially in Shanghai and Beijing. Okay, so it's suitable for the hectic lifestyle and to recharge, to put away stress and to recharge. However, for the younger professionals, they are looking for something more simple, minimalistic, not extravagant. But the second generation wealth would demand a bit more of luxury tendencies, especially in the, for example, the high-end branded treatment products that they use. So it might be minimalist, but there must be certain luxury elements to be able to, for them to enjoy. But the concern is it too boring? So according to my recollection is, can you have some party at night? Because at the spa, at the retreat, it's just too dry. It's just too dry. So they really need to spice up the quietness of the stay. So they are asking quite a fair bit. So the quietness as well as the vibrance in the night. Okay. So now we're coming to the accommodation of choices. First is the local homestay. And indeed, to our surprise, it was one of the preferred ways, because they actually want to experience local culture, lifestyle, and at the same time, a homey feeling away from home. Okay? Even those who prefer to stay in luxury or trusted brand hotels said that this is a must. So it is one of the it's one of the elements that, if we draw back to the ideal, is about the immersion. So what would they expect? To be able to taste authentic local food, experience local decor, okay, getting tips to go where only the local knows, okay, to be located at the heart of local life and attraction. But of course, cleanliness and safety is another issue. Okay, so the bed sheets must be clean, the toilet must be properly cleaned. Okay, so these are the concerns. Staff to be friendly and helpful, but not overzealous. Okay, don't care where I go as long as you keep the door unlocked when I come back at night. So these are the things. Okay, Luxury hotel. Still particularly attractive, especially among the second generation wealthy group. Why? When they're much younger, they would have experienced it with their parents. And the income, the family income enables them to stay and enjoy in such hotels. Okay, very confident in the approach, and they could tell you what different brands are. They could tell, oh, because I go to Ritz-Carlton because they have all the shampoo and bathing toiletries that I like. Okay, so they are in such a way. That's why they are very focused on personal service. They see hotels as a facilitator to their trip. Okay, very high expectations towards the staff. Must be able to be on hand to help and advise them on unique activities. So what would they want? Butler service. 24 hours, 7 days a week, room service is a must. Okay, concierge. Concierge is no longer just carrying your bags out and getting you a taxi, keeping your luggage, but is to be able to be a pseudo tour guide. You must be able to recommend where to go, what to do. Okay, centrally located in the middle of action. Okay, as well as some cultural and stylistic local elements. So if you're based in China, you're based in Europe, your hotels must have certain elements that reflect the destination that you're in. Finally, we come to design hotels. So what are design hotels to them? It's a hotel, they are hotels with personality and attitude. Okay? So being a younger crowd, they would tend to look for a niche and differentiating ways from their peers. Okay, so it's like what we said here, trading social currency. How different am I staying in this hotel compared to my peers? So they are always looking ways to differentiate themselves. Okay, also be able to get a feel of the trendy local life if they were to stay, likely to miss if they stay in a conservative hotel. Okay, can also be good for a business trip. So in the evening, you could have some fun. Decor is expected to be unique, bright and energetic. Okay, service has to be relaxed and friendly. No longer butler style, but maybe you could have earrings and tattoos. Okay, because you have a personality and an attitude. So it's okay for staff in such a hotel having tattoos and ear studs. Okay, and then cutting edge technology. Okay, finally, you must be able to organize edgy events within the hotel. And finally, food has to be unique and attractive. Okay? So that's all to the extract for the report. So I'll hand it back to Mark. So if there is there any questions, we can answer them later on. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was just a very short preview of some much more content into the report, and as I say, we'll send it to you by tomorrow. So beside the result of the qualitative survey that was done with Acorn, we thought we needed to do a different type of research where we get those people almost in front of you, basically. So it's more like a portrait, and getting to know them into the things that they do, they like, and how they talk. So we went on to do a few things. So first was a video of a young traveler who's here actually from Guangzhou, and who came today to be with us, and you can ask her any question. And this is what she has to say about travel.
曾有一位诗人说过，旅行就是你带着希望出发，然后变得不一样归来。旅行还是发现自己的过程，还有对世界和不同文化、习俗、生活有一个新的了解。我一般根据自己的偏好、愿意去选择旅行目的地，但是也会受到流行文化的影响。到巴黎旅行，我就会以电影为主题，像以天使爱美丽去游蒙马特地区， 然后巴黎我爱你就会去游文化馆。旅行需要慢节奏去发现，所以我特别喜欢轻松自发的行程。如果你的计划太周详，或者是你的时间太赶，反而可能收获不到旅途中的意外惊喜。在葡萄牙里斯本的时候，我自己一个女生迷路了，但是却因为问路，结识了一位当地的音乐家，还有一位俄罗斯旅居的姑娘。那位音乐家叫做 Joan， 她已经70多岁了，但是却非常的热情有活力。她得知我一个女生来到了里斯本，她就和她的同行瓦伦蒂娜当了我1天下午的导游，给我介绍里斯本的历史，还有特色的门店等等。临走的时候，她还写了一首诗给我。直到现在啊，我们仍然会保持一个邮件的联络，彼此分享生活。在国外行走，我得到了人与人之间难得的信任，还有友善。无论走到国外哪里，家的一碗汤，一道粤菜，都会是我最温暖的思念。家就是一份归属感，而这份感觉啊，在你走出国门的时候，就会显得特别珍贵。在国外，你始终是以外国人的身份去进入当地的生活，心态就一定要包容、平和，并带着思考去感受外国的文化。我们应该乐于向外国人展示自己的文化，还有自己的城市。旅行带给我的全球观，开始让我反思自己的生活所身处的社会，同时也会让我审视自己在这个世界上所扮演的角色。
So Zhongyi will be part of our panel later on. I think she will be talking more and answering questions about her feeling about traveling and what it means to her and her generation. I think she's very representative of a particular group in China. So that'd be interesting to hear her insight. And we hope by having this more multimedia form of insight, we can spice up and make the research more inspiring, basically. So we went on further, and we interview people, and we also outside of a focus group. And for this person in particular, Tasha from Shanghai, and she's in her late 20s, so a bit more mature. And we asked her to share a playlist, like a 10 best song that she would take when she's traveling. And you would be maybe surprised that it's very nostalgic. Cue in some music. Yeah. But okay, I think I'm going to give you a bit of background on Tasha, because she's one of the partner of Donglian. Donglian is in Shanghai is one of the most influential now boutique store for fashion designer from China. So they only represent Chinese fashion designer and pretty young fashion designer, and they're extremely active into that area, and they're kind of redefining the fashion industry and for China as it is. But I think a selection is typical of what she described herself as a wenchi, which is the cultured youth. And we've done a previous article on that. It's a very influential group in China, looking at culture as a defining characteristic for them. So you can go listen to those music, get a sense a bit more who are those people and how influential they can be. in their taste. And then we ask a few people to open their bag and just see what they're packing when they travel. The first one is an engineer, and so he's more a young professional, not from a wealthy family, but still very brand conscious in his own way. And with some little quirks, like, you know, he wants to listen to music not on an iPhone, but on an old iPod, right? So this nostalgia and this reference to almost vintage item is also very characteristic of that group of millennials. The second one is the typical representation of our second generation wealthy group from a very good family with means. And she's an intern in a fashion magazine right now. And as you can see, when she travels, she's pretty decked out. With, from Chanel to Charlotte Olympia shoes. So in that sense, you know, very mature in a choice toward luxury. So, we to go back a bit to what we asked those people. We asked them about their recent travel and how they plan it. Where did they go? So just a few numbers here, and it basically matches the macro data we had before. So mostly Europe. Sorry, Asia is coming obviously as a first destination because it's easier for shorter trip, but Europe is definitely, and France and Italy are the big destination for them. So not much surprise here, but the frequency of you can see the frequency of the trips is pretty high, with 3 to 4 in the big trips in the last 24 months. So they've been traveling. So it really demonstrates the numbers, the macro numbers, that this is a generation we really spend, effort and money into travel. With an average length of stay that is also quite significant. So this is talking about 2 week trips in average, so pretty high. And also we asked them about what future destination they had in mind, coming up, and as was said before, they're looking for more exotic place, maybe a bit out of the way of those very obvious destination for Chinese traveler. And Turkey was mentioned several times. Sri Lanka is big on the list as an Asian different type of destination. And then we had Tahiti, Egypt, Peru, Palau, Fiji. So I think they're looking at ways to get out of a crowded place, basically. So we asked them what makes a memorable trip to them, to trigger a bit more evocation, and we fall back onto this idea of nature and relaxation, big time. The size of a word is proportional to how often it came out. Adventure as well, and we're going to talk about this. In the report, you will find some extracts of, we asked them to describe the trip, the most memorable trip, and you will find a few of those here. Some funny example, like Santorini, Greece, and the reason why they wanted to go there is they read online that if you love her, you have to bring her to Santorini, which I love that. Okay. Interesting from young professional, those two. Road trip, 1 month in the US also. So quite independent, a sense of adventure. And this one is quite funny because the guy is his happiest time of his life where he was throwing up because he was so drunk in the lake in Yunnan. So it's bonding and getting together with your friends, group of friends, and getting away from the stress of that they feel in their work is very important. I'll let you enjoy some of the quotes here. We even got lost in Monaco, so that sense of adventure, even in those little places. And boutique hotels are hotels where the staff got tattoos. I think is one of the most interesting. So, to go back to the top travel and top hotel concept, I think it tells a lot about the mindset of this generation that we might take for granted sometimes from outside, but I think that the desire to explore and to learn and expand themselves through travel is tremendous. And one of the reasons is, I mean, we haven't talked too much about the negative aspect, but I mean, we touch on safety, which is a big thing, but I'll go later into that. But the feeling of stress that we are under in China is quite tremendous and is coming a lot into the conversation. So this, we're going to give you, here in the report, we give you three of our, I think, the takeaway, the big insight that we thought were extremely important. And the first one is escape, as we mentioned already. So I think escape, I mean, you travel to not necessarily to escape, but to explore. But escape was a key driver for them to travel out of China. I have to put that in context because we also asked them some personal questions at the beginning. And in the second generation wealthy group, we were quite surprised to learn that 100%, all of them, had made plans already to immigrate out of China once they have children. 100%. I mean, that was shocking to us. It's not about travel, but they had the means, and I'm saying immigrate with their family at one point was basically their plans. Okay. So it's kind of shocking, but this is what's happening right now in China. So people are planning a way out. I'm just saying that, but I think it's a bit it's quite a discovery when you actually talk to people. So in that context, for people, even for the young professional, you understand when you talk to them that getting out of China, of the pollution, of the stress, and maybe some of the mindset also, is a key thing for them. So escape was our biggest driver. And then bonding. So I think you touch on that with a romance and friendship, but really I think compared to a Western traveler, I mean you don't go. Very few people go travel on their own. Some do, but I don't think the key driver for a Western audience when they go out is to be necessarily with their friends. I mean, you can do that, but here, the opportunity to travel was an opportunity to get closer to your friend, which is what they felt they couldn't do at home in such an intense way. So that was, again, a very telling insight that we get. This idea that you have to be together, and also, in some extent, they feel safer when they are in a group of friends rather than on their own. So organized travel with small group of 4, 5, 6 people is a big thing for the travel agency in China, which facilitate that usually with even a personal tour guide or a driver to some location. So it's a big thing for a group of people, friends, to organize such kind of trip, basically, where they are self-sufficient with external help, and they can move together. And the last one was learning. So learning for a better world is hard to to describe. It's not academic, of course, but this idea that they need to get out of China to experience something else, to better themselves, was huge. And that's a key driver for them to go outside and travel and explore. Hence, I think the local, the taste for getting deeper into a local culture. They want to absorb culture and understand how things work differently outside of China. I mean, that was being repeated again and again during the interviews, right? So we didn't put this as an insight in terms of actionable insight, but this is a concern about safety that came over and over again. I think there's a lot of bad press. There's been a lot of bad press recently about, well, even before what happened a few weeks ago, but with Paris and Chinese travelers, for example, who were basically being targeted to get ripped off, stolen their money. So there's this sense that they are becoming a target almost because there's so many of them. They travel with cash usually. This is changing, with union pay being more really accepted in Europe and the US. But on many levels, they thought that, I mean, safety was a concern. So when they choose where they travel, how they travel, with who they travel, this will be a key thing, which again, I don't think for a Western audience will be such a big concern. So, so that's another view of a report that we give you. And now we're going to show you, we thought it wasn't enough, so we'd have to do a little bit of creative interpretation of those three big insights. And we went on to basically try to imagine what would be, maybe in 10 years, what would be the brand, the product that those people will be excited about. And again, that's here where we come, I think, as Marc and Chantal, as a creative agent into this process of research, insight, and understanding what's going on around us, basically. So our first, sorry. So with insight and creative interpretation, we hope to present a few fun future concept of what could be the next brand, basically. So we take escape, obviously, as our first example, and I think we created, that one. We go. So maybe as a subsidiary of WeChat, and the idea is we call it WeGo. The cube that sets you free. So it's almost, how do you say? Oxymoron, sorry. Always have difficulty with that word. Almost an oxymoron, which also resonates very nicely with that generation that is, a bit, which enjoy that kind of humor. And it's we're gonna explain step by step what is this WeGo doing. So it's basically, the plane is no plane. It's like you travel, but you don't know where you're going. So it's like a roulette travel. So the idea is that you sign up for an adventure, you pick the length of your trip, maybe the temperature you like, and you don't know where you're going. You show up at an airport and you enter a mirror cube that is on the ad. And that's going to be your home and your travel device, basically, for the rest of your trip. You dropped in a location, you get out, and you just discover and explore the thing. Okay? And then you move on like that. So the idea here is really to answer this sense of exploration and surprise, and almost like a game, basically, that the generation is craving for. The second one, of course, about bonding and being together for this generation. So we thought of another travel concept, which we call win-win. and it's more the other one is like more a brick and mortar brand. This is more online community with a platform where you go with your friend as team, and you compete with certain tasks against each other or against other teams, basically. So you find your team, you organize a group of friends, and you get ready to travel and compete with other people. And it becomes it's a bit like a Nike run type of application, where you can compete, who's going to be the best traveler with different tasks, and you can see almost instantly what the other are doing. So it's gamification, and there's a potential also here to make it almost like a TV reality show, which is also what this kind of what this generation is responding to. And the last one, going local, we felt, I mean, we were told by them that travel is really a way to expand your mind and change your brain almost. So learning from the locals, learning about authentic culture to transform yourself was the key thing. So we came up with this one, Brain Trip, get ready to be school. So it's almost the school of travel, the school of life through travel. And again, on an online platform, you select a special interest. I think niche interest is really something that defines them, this generation. And through the interest being leather, for example, you suggest Morocco, and you go there and you can practice almost. You trip before going through online resource, and then connect with a network of maybe local guides. Simon can talk about it later, about this kind of thing. It's like a Uber of local guide services together with educational tool, basically. I think that concludes our first part of the presentation, and I think we'll move on later to the panel discussion.
But we have a kind of spectrum of the industry and travelers here that we couldn't pass up the opportunity to have some feedback from. I'll go through the introductions in a bit, but we'll mostly respond to what they've just seen. They haven't had the full preview themselves, so it's quite new to them, and then we'll welcome your debate discussions to both them and to us and Acorn on any questions you have. We have Simon Westcott from LUXE Travel Guides, owner and CEO of LUXE Travel Guides, formerly of Lonely Planet, so a veteran of the travel industry with quite a bit of China experience on top of that. And if I don't neglect it, Mr. and Mrs. Smith as well. Brought Mr. and Mrs. Smith to Asia Pacific, and we'll go through that in just a second. Mika, or Zhongyi, who you met in the video earlier, she was part of our focus group in Guangzhou, and we were quite impressed with her travel experience, extensive. She's actually studying tourism management in Guangzhou at the, is it Sino-French Institute?
Sino-French Institute of Guangzhou University, so I have to learn French and also Chinese. Yeah.
So definitely a huge amount of experience and just a personal interest in the topic we are discussing. And then Chen from Shangri-la, the Deputy Director of Corporate Projects. So maybe, right. Yeah, maybe if you could go through first, because as I was explaining earlier, the Deputy Director of Corporate Projects may not do exactly what I at first thought when I saw the title. If you could tell us a little bit about what your roles are, what the scope is,
sure.
And what you look at in relation to what we just saw.
Sure. So in the corporate office of our organization, I work with the team. The team title is called Development Innovation. So we basically set strategic goals and strategies for new hotel development, as well as renovation and refurbishment of the old hotels. So I'm just curious about, this particular topic. And with the amount of report that has been issued, I felt that this particular topic is most relevant to any hospitality groups, really, because this batch of travelers is increasing every year, and it's going to be one of the most important revenue resource for any group, really.
And Mika, can you tell us a little bit about what you're studying specifically, and then some of your overseas experience, because you have spent time living abroad as well as traveling?
Sure. Good afternoon. Right now, I'm the final year student in the University of Guangzhou, and my major is tourism management. And besides, I also study some related courses like exhibition management and hotel management. Yeah, but this September, I will go to Edinburgh University to continue my master, but which I specialize in marketing because it will relate my tourism management and marketing together, and then maybe I will widen the tourist market in China or something else. Yeah. Good. During my second year in university, I have a chance to become an exchange student in Italy for 1 year. So during that time, I traveled altogether 45 cities in Europe, and by different kinds of forms. For example, like being a couch surfing, or have a homestay in UK, and also be a farmer in the for the wine in the farmer France. So for me, it's a very interesting and unique experience. And besides, I also learned to speak Italian, and then I will compare different kinds of language, and also make a language partner with the locals, and then I will taste much deeper about the local culture and know more about how foreigners to view our China, about some Chinese, and then it will much helpful for me to learn more about my tourism studies. And I still remember a very memorable experience is about the Braga. I spent a new year there, and we didn't know everyone each other, and when the fireworks set on the sky, everybody, and beside those Italian I didn't know, we spent a beer and a cheers, and that's really memorable, for me. And this is what exactly the means of tourist for me. Yeah, thank you.
So you can see why Mika was the perfect person to talk about this. We have to say that she is exceptional, and this is not everybody in China, which you're well aware of. So Simon, maybe you can fill us in a little bit on your background in China. You have been going for quite a long time.
Yeah, I sort of feel slightly fraudulent being here, in as much as I suppose my main exposure to Chinese millennials was 10 years ago. So they're in fact now not millennials. But we launched Learning Planet in China in 2005. So I was reasonably encouraged to know that Learning Planet's still there as a sort of source. I suppose I also looked quite closely at China, as is Amira, my colleague from Mr. and Mrs. Smith here. But the sort of opportunities for Mr. and Mrs. Smith in China as well, thinking about how that millennial group had grown up and had more disposable income. The business dedicated to hotels with lots of tattoos. So that was a very good insight. And more recently, thinking about the opportunities for LUXE city guides in China, which we'll hopefully be exploiting in the next 6 to 12 months. And I think that will most likely be for a slightly older cohort. But I think for me, one of the key things that was fascinating, sort of thinking about China now, thinking about China when I engaged in the Learning Planet context. Obviously, the key shift when I was expecting to come through, didn't come through, but it's sort of implicit there, is the extent to which disposable income has changed for that cohort in that time, and people coming into that cohort. And there is still a differential, but that differential is not nearly as great. So I had very affluent people asking me questions about, I think I put it into the report, sleeping on park benches in Scotland, whether it was safe to do that when they these are marketers for Louis Vuitton that, in 2005. So they were sort of really sort of dirtball backpackers when they were travelling then, and that shifted. But I think I loved all that insight around the escape piece and the stresses of life in China today. That came through. That was a real insight for me from the report. And thinking about, I think there is a sort of, there's a lot of convergence with the habits and sort of attributes of those people in China compared to their contemporaries around the world. But I think that the sort of mindset of where they're coming from and the experience they're taking with them into their travel experience is obviously, it's not the same. It's a very distinct experience.
And yeah, that's exactly what I wanted to address with the first point. One of the things that was kind of a bit unexpected to us as we were looking into the travel habits is how much they are now in alignment broadly with Western people of the same age and income who are traveling. The things that they're after, the things that they enjoy doing and are willing to spend money on are oftentimes very similar. But we found the motivations could be quite different, which is quite key in the industry in learning how to market, but also how to deliver those products so it meets the underlying need and not just the surface need. So maybe, could you speak a little bit about that? Have you seen a change in Chinese and, say, Western travelers coming together as far as the products that they're seeking?
I think from a hotel developer point of view, it's I think when we have developed in the past, it's more creating that comfort for international travelers, so to speak. And while the market has diversified itself, you have a mixture of domestic travelers and international travelers. And then I think at one period we're designing specific needs for the two groups of people. And you do see a convergence of travel habits or value propositions in that manner. So you're actually defining less about the nationality and where the origins of the travel, but from the habits, from maybe the value systems, the experience of traveling, the job nature, and so on and so forth. But that's also related to how China has globalized itself to the international market. You would find people working in a branch office in Shanghai samely hardworking as an office in New York, or even more so sometimes. So that shapes a very unified travel habits, so to speak. Is that
yeah,
the question?
That's exactly it. Maybe from a traveler perspective, we can see the other side. So I guess you have experience traveling with other Chinese people your age. You've traveled a lot on your own.
Yeah.
What are kind of those things that you know are different when you're traveling with a group of friends from China rather than a mixed group abroad? Is there kind of a mentality that you see different in the Chinese tourists?
Yeah, actually, maybe like most foreigners think of Chinese travelers, they always take their photos, always carry cameras. They do not use their eyes to look at a beautiful sunset just through the camera. And many are like the second generation wealthy. They always go to the luxury shops to buy a lot of luxury goods like Chanel, and always the Chinese people. Maybe for some of my friends, there exists. And maybe when compared to my friends in Italy, they always prefer travel by car, or they also just enjoy the local culture. They prefer to go to museum. But many of my Chinese friends, because we always want to go to just see some beautiful sights, and just always carry the camera and some Cansier super colors sticking like that, and then we always share through Instagram and through WeChat, and to let other friends to know where exactly we are. Maybe it's the most difference compared to the European friends. Yeah.
I liked in the what people packed, the prevalence of notebooks, and I think that's a sort of trend that's probably happening outside of China. But the sort of idea that it's a creative process of noting, as well as the sort of the sort of status-driven, I'm here, look at me. Yeah. I also thought it was slightly depressing that iPods were considered nostalgic and, and vintage from a different era. Yeah.
A bit sad for
yes. For the early adopters.
Something interesting that did come up was the different the desire to get something back from travel that we felt was a bit stronger than, say, in the West. And what I mean by that is, for instance, with the spa trip, the one that we showed, and we said that they needed activities to justify it, to fill it out, to say that day was kind of worthwhile. It wasn't just that I relaxed and got away from the office, or that I got away from the urban surroundings and pollution of China. So maybe you could speak a little bit about that from a hotel perspective. Is there the need to fill up things, activities, and...
I think historically, when you develop a resort kind of environment, there's always that element of going out of the resort experience with the nature, doing some activities with the water, with the mountain, and all of that. I think that aspect is slowly getting into the city hotels, so to speak. That discovery element, that takeaway element. People are combining a lot more with business travel, with leisure travelers. People usually extend their trip during the weekends, so that aspect is or has to be taken care of. And as a group, I have to say that we haven't been very good at it, but we're working on it. Something in keep in mind when we develop newer city hotels is to make sure that the hotel is not just a place to sleep. It's a collection of memory that you can take away, either by entertainment, either by the uniqueness of the objects you put in, the kind of technology or the personality you interact with. I think that element of discovery and fun is essential in today's development world.
I guess related to that, with the mass 230 million in just that one decade age range, how are people standing out? And this can be anecdotal. Do you have any examples of people who've just kind of gone to the extreme? Mika, you're almost at the extreme of really going 45 destinations in a year, this type of travel, but have any of your friends done anything that's really surprised you?
Surprised you? Yeah, actually 6. Because I usually travel through the couch surfing, and then maybe the surprise me is the kindness and always open-minded of the foreigners, because in China maybe my mom won't let me to open my house to host a stranger. Sure. This may be a little bit lack of trust in China. So couch surfing is still not very popular in China. I think the problem is it is. However, when compared to Europe, I know the very kind host in Paris. He hosts me for a week for free, and he showed me, although he's just very busy, and he always showed me around to see the night Paris. That's really fantastic. And he always teach me how to cook authentic of the food, and cook like the cheese, how to match with the food. Yeah, this is really interesting. They always show their trust to others, and if you are in trouble, they're always the one to respond to you. Yeah. That is the one that surprised me the most.
Maybe you want to explain a bit more about couch surfing and which service did you use? I mean, which website?
Did you use couchsurfing.com or a different platform?
Platform right in the internet.
Which was it couchsurfing.com?
.com, yeah, like office site.
So for anyone who's not aware, couchsurfing is where you make a couch or extra room or what have you, piece of the floor available for someone to stay. It also involves hosting people, taking them around oftentimes. So it's quite a wide spectrum, and it's really the sharing economy without a commercial aspect to it.
Yeah, I mean, and obviously the company that's really introduced the commercial aspect to it is Airbnb. And I met with Airbnb in San Fran last week, and they're incredibly interested in the Chinese market for obvious reasons and want insights. So you might want to contact them. Yeah. No, it's fascinating stuff.
And I mean, you've seen kind of the ramp up from Lonely Planet, people kind of sleeping on trains, doing whatever they could to save money, to now with LUXE guides, talking to often the same people, maybe slightly older than millennials, but I think the same issues still apply. So you've kind of seen the...
It's interesting. I think there are two slightly different insights there. I do think, and I just even listened to Yumika again, you know, it's just that there's such a sort of confidence and bravery and fearlessness somehow in the Chinese mentality in travel. You know, compared to, think about, you know, the growth of travel in Japan. It took so much longer for the Japanese to feel confident about doing those kinds of things. But you've just got this in a generation. You've just got people kind of just turning up and, you know, I mean, more brave in some ways than you know, the people on gap years in the Western context. But a particular one insight that comes through on the in the report, and I don't know if you've used Zhongyi, is how you say it? Q-Y-E-R, I never quite know how. Q-Y-E-R, it's Zhongyi, poor travel. Chunna, no, not Chunna, not Q-U-N-A-R. The Q-Y-E-R, it's a site called Q-Y-E-R, which means poor. It was referenced in the, isn't it called, isn't that poor travel? Isn't it?
Danny would know.
Zhongyi, yeah, that's right.
Thanks.
Sorry, yeah, mangled it, yeah. Do you use Zhongyi?
Actually, not.
You haven't?
Yeah.
Because?
Because for me, I do not always prefer 穷游 because 穷游always to how to save money instead of paying attention to the security in most of the times. Yeah.
Okay, so they're too concerned with money, with poor travel.
So
okay.
I do not gather.
Yeah. Well, and this is very interesting because the guy that was the Lonely Planet man in China, who went over to sort of be one of the founding directors at Zhongyi, they've watched this this market become much more affluent, much more quickly, and they did a promotion with Xanadu, who are also referenced in the report, the boutique hotel site in China, and they had absolutely stratospheric rates of conversion. So it's very interesting. So I think there is this sort of latent, you know, unless brands are moving really quickly, they're going to be out of touch if it's all about money and saving. I think it was something like, it was 9 to 10% conversion on a promotion, which for those of you in the e-commerce environment, that's like 3 times normal conversion.
In the report, there's an interview I did actually with one of the editorial and PR director of Xanadu, Vanessa. Yeah. And I think you will find in the report it's quite interesting. Even though this, you know, millennials are not, well, they thought it was not the main target audience, but it's becoming very quickly one of the key group, even for Xanadu, which is considered a high-end premium boutique travel agency.
It's because the reason they partnered with Xanadu, Zhongyi partnered, was because people that were using the service were saying, we're bored of staying in, you know, holiday inns. It's not just about money. It has to be more interesting. So it goes a little bit to the bravery piece. You know, there's the sort of bravery of couch surfing, and there'll be the graduation into the Airbnb thing. But it is sort of wanting to sort of push the boundaries on design, on service, on uniqueness, in a way that the Western travellers are.
I think, as we see also about in the report, we think it's when we talk about escape and learning, we very clearly we found that travel for this generation was a way to an affirmation of their individuality. So it defined themselves as individual against a group, but at the same time they want to be part of tribes. So we talk about that also. And I think our creative response is addressing this issue, is this sense of, and that travel is a key way to differentiate yourself, and a way to expand and learn about yourself, basically. So that was very strong. And on the luxury side, I think the report just came out, and that now travel is the #1 luxury item, what shopping was before. So even for more mature Chinese audience, or China in general, travel has become the key thing where you want to spend money, and the motivation is clearly they want to spend money on themselves and bettering themselves, and travel is seen as a facilitator of that process. So again, maybe the motivation behind all the even these things are converging with a Western traveler. I think the motivation are quite different. So that's insight on this report.
For sure. I think we'll wrap up with a few questions, and then I will throw it to you guys because there are so many of you from the industry that I'm equally curious to hear your thoughts and feedback. So you did talk, you mentioned that there are aspects in which Shangri-la, your brand, isn't meeting the needs, but maybe if we talk more broadly, how are hotels meeting these needs that we just saw discussed? Where do you see them falling short, and what's the future looking like?
I think especially for luxury and high-end brand, there is kind of a overdue redefinition of luxury in that manner, be it discovery, be it the cultural needs of Chinese travelers. I think hotels in general try to cover it with diversifying of brands. So we just recently rebranded our Traders brand into Hotel Gen to cover that needs. But it's still a very generic, kind of very broad approach. And I think hotels in general are not, that's almost, it's still more focused on the hardware, more focused on a systematic kind of ramping up to catch up what's there. I think more so is to really change how we approach hotel development in general. And be it, Airbnb is the subject that we're studying very intensely at the moment, is how that actually changes how people perceive hotel. Why does people want to choose hotel anymore? And we really need to go to the roots and really discover. Hotel in the past is a safety. People travel and stay in a hotel because it's safe. You always get a burger, you always get a Coca-Cola, but you can get it anywhere now. So what is the next? I think this is what, as hotel kind of company, I think, and in general, as more from more international brands, I think everyone is trying to discover it. Everyone is trying to discover what's the next definition for hotel in general, and we haven't found an answer yet.
Sure, we'll keep working. I guess maybe we can get a direct response. Do you find yourself booking ever hotels like Shangri-La or Hilton, Marriott, these large international chains?
Yeah,
So you do both?
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Because in Europe, maybe I would like to taste the unique thing for Europe. But in China, when I travel, I always travel with my family, so I would prefer those hotels together. It's much more comfortable, and the service is always personal. Yeah.
Interesting dilemma.
Yeah.
Very interesting dilemma.
Okay.
But you see, that would change soon, because the more we develop into more remote locations in China, you discover there are actually a lot of young hoteliers coming up in a very locally uneducated way. Just naturally, they're just hospitable people that wants to house their friends and families. Those are really also eating the market at the moment. We're building a hotel in Shangri-La in Yunnan province, right? And we go there, we never stay in any local 5-star hotel. We often stay with this little boutique hotel with 17 rooms. And we know, sorry?
Whereabouts? In Dali.
In Diqing County, yeah, which they renamed as Shangri-La County. So that's, I think those groups, there's a lot of smaller, more unique, more destination-focused groups, more region-focused groups, very locally oriented. So they operate a couple of hotels in the same region, but they kind of share the same trace of value and system. I think those are eating a lot of the market at the moment. And you really, if you're looking for authenticity, I think in China even, there are a lot upcoming of boutiqueness in that. So that's, I believe, because they changed that model, right? If you're going to a remote area, you're probably not talking about Coca-Cola and burger. You're probably talking about something else, warm water, floor heating, or, it's a complete different definition of it.
So that's what you have on your horizon as a trend that's coming in to watch out for, to respond to.
To respond to, really, yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. I'll have to check that one out. Simon, how are you, with LUXE and the other kind of ventures that you're part of, looking to the future to meet the needs? I know that China is definitely going to be a big market for you, and you're preparing for that. How are the things that we talked about today playing into?
Yeah, well, when we were just talking just then, I think one of the most overused words in the travel industry at the moment is this idea of experiences. It's all about experiences, and not just about ticking off sites and stuff like that. But there is a lot of truth in that. One of the specific things that we're very interested in is the growth in private guiding, and this window into incredibly informed and insider kind of experiences. So I'm sort of interested in the perspectives from a Chinese millennial sort of starting point. You were sort of talking about effectively people doing some of that stuff for you for free out of couch surfing or those kind of things. But the same impulse is still there, which is, how do I really know that I'm getting a very accurate sort of fast track to an insider experience, and whether that's the sort of the regional hotel in Yunnan giving you a proper trek or whatever else it might be. I suppose, yes, in cities or in more sort of wilderness type environments, to know that you're getting a really incredibly informed first-hand experience, I think is something that is becoming more and more important to all different markets. Yeah. So for LUXE, it'll be a slightly more affluent. It'll be for a slightly more affluent and potentially older audience, but yes, the 3 or 4 hour morning or afternoon, the PhD educated art consultant or whoever else it might be that's giving you that experience, access to something out of hours or when the crowds aren't there. We can see anecdotally that more and more people are taking advantage of those kinds of services.
I think that plays into this notion of safety and reputation. There's an increased risk-taking, which is the private tour in the first place, which is not something that we necessarily saw in China before.
I think safety is not quite the motivation, because I think that...
I don't really mean physical safety, but a safety of mind, a peace of mind that this is, as you said, the best tour, the deepest you can go into that.
Yes,
and so it becomes about brand reputation to give the stamp of approval for that.
Yes, and LUXE sees that as an opportunity to, in a sense, bring alive what we already do, which is to curate amazing recommendations. But the reason I picked up on the safety idea was that I think it's actually quite sophisticated travellers who are going back to places they know well, who are using those guides as well. So it's it feels counterintuitive, but if I've been to New York 7 times, what do I do to make sure that the 8th time I go, it's even more interesting than the last time I was here? Well,
the first time you can skip.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah. So it's yes, it is about the safety of knowing that you've got the good guide, not the cruddy guide, but it's also about just the the intensity of the experience and the sophistication of the experience that's more important.
And Mika, maybe we'll give you the last word here. So in the many things we talked about, but in those final 3 insights of escape and bonding and learning, was there one that stood out to you? Did you feel a personal kind of connection to any of those as describing yourself?
Yeah, sure. Escape, maybe at this moment I do have a very strong force of escape because I'm still there, right? And so maybe learning is the first of me, because I will go to Edinburgh for my study, and then traveling is a form of learning. And then when I'm learning, I will find a bonding and also find escape in mind. Maybe those annoying things, maybe those maybe there is a little bit generation gap between me and my parents, it's like that. So if I travel and I meet different kinds of friends, maybe I will find another approach to solve those problems with it. And then I will contribute to my learning step by step. Yeah, this is travel.
You're a very good spokesperson for the generation.
Thank you.
Can I just say one of the things that I loved in what you said was that you thought that travel gave you a sort of, it helped you understand your place in the world and to think about society. And I just think, how many Western people would you hear going, I really want to think about society when I'm going to travel? No, but I think it's really, and learning, the danger of the word learning is that it's all about I am learning Italian or I am learning about the Renaissance. it's what I was hearing you say was something much more profound about understanding. You know, you're in a culture that is changing faster than any other culture in history, and understanding what that means from the inside, but then also understanding what it means from the outside. It's bigger than learning. It's a contemplation.
That's why I say learning is not the right precise word. It's hard to put it in words. Maybe you can help.
It's not, the place to your understanding your place. It's philosophy, social philosophy. It's fascinating.
Well, I'd like to throw it out for a few minutes for. It can be a response. It can be. I mean, you're all within the industry, so you have your own opinions on what we've shown. But I'd also like to make everyone available if you have questions of Acorn, ourselves, or the three panelists.
Yeah, very quickly with Mika. Do you think travel for the millennials in China is a right? That everyone should be allowed to travel out of China?
Yeah, thank you for the question. For me, it's right because I am older young generation than Chinese. But actually, as for me, it will divide into two groups. Maybe some of it could have their level as a proof of the economy. If the family they can give their economic sponsorship for them, or they can earn those money that they will travel. This is excellent. This is quite excellent. But if those, China is just really, there are large population. If those young generation, they are still poor for their dinner or something for their study, I think traveling maybe is not at exactly the process or the right moment for them. Yeah, maybe it's in their future. It's right. Yeah.
I think I'm coming more from being allowed out of the country.
Out of country.
Yeah, being allowed by, let's say, the freedom of travel, the choice. You have the means. I think the millennials have the means, as proven in the study. But there are big groups within China who will never get out of the country. But I would just like to have your take on whether you feel it is for the millennials, it is the right time, the right group for anyone to have from China to have that choice of traveling either in China or outside. It's something that people from outside China take for granted, that a travel document can be issued and they would seek visas, etc. Obviously the financial side comes into play. But I'd just like to know how you feel about that.
In terms of those group, I think it's excellent choice for them because China is open to all over the world, and that means China is become more and more international. That means they also require those persons like us in the future is also international. So if the student they could go out to study or just taste the culture, they will be more critical to think the culture. They will never say, "Oh, why why the foreigners they do things like that? I could not understand." But if they have some foreign experience like this, they will. Oh no, I understand it. I know how to persuade or get to know why they do things like that. So it's really a right choice.
I'd like to add a little bit to that. I was born in Shanghai. I was brought up in Shanghai. I never got to travel abroad until I was like maybe 18, 19. And I think traveling and living outside of China actually gives you the right judgment and understanding about China a lot more. When you're grounded in that particular nation, you have frustration, you have all kinds of misperception of a lot of things, be it on overly right side or overly wrong side. You have all these kind of distorted views. But once you've learned what the world is about, and then you look at China from outside, it gives a completely different perspective and actually helps you to shape your nationalisms or your actual identity a lot further, a lot closer. So to answer your question, I believe that everyone should be allowed to travel outside of China. It helps it. It helps them.
Is it still quite a tortuous? I remember talking to someone last year who was relatively wealthy and travelled frequently, but it's still a relatively complicated process, isn't it, of having to go physically to apply for the visas, and I mean, not all the countries are on the visit list yet, and so it's still, it's quite equalising, you know, like everybody has to go through quite a physical process to get permission to leave, right?
Yeah.
Still
At one
the case.
point we did have a map of kind of influence,
Yeah.
how powerful your passport is, and it was very telling that China's is quite weak.
Yeah.
In that way, and it leads to a lot of conclusions about why people do or don't go to certain areas. And
there's actually still a lot of people from China who do have the money to travel, they do actually have the passport as well, but they get denied by the embassies of the countries they want to go to.
You kind of think that it's not going to go backwards, it must continue to change pretty fast.
Yeah, it's going to get better.
Yeah.
also think it's yeah.
Right. I'm curious, can you talk a little bit about parent and child relationship in this? You mentioned a bit that 100% of this generation is actually looking for to emigrate.
I think that was in the Beijing focus group.
No, in all the group.
In all the groups.
But in the wealthy second generation.
So if you take
99% maybe.
Yeah, which is quite significant. So
Yeah.
if you take parents who may not have had that travel experience before, and being a young person as yourself now with this addiction for travel, does that cause parent, child, I mean, what are the dynamics that are screwed up?
Because I think China is a little bit different from Europe, because tourism has developed a lot in Europe. But for China, and with the development of the economy these years, and our parents obviously work hard, maybe it's journey maybe is a type of relaxing, but they are not very good at English, so they are not always choose those some countries or places outside our country. So because I can speak different kinds of language, I will be the guide for them. So, but because they are always curious about the tickets or the different kind of cultures, so my parents often choose to travel inside our country, like Beijing, Shanghai, etc. So not yet, they cannot. Maybe after I go to UK for my study, maybe they will visit me, and then I will be the guide to guide them to have a visit life.
And are they very supportive of you? Are they happy that you're traveling as much as you do?
Yeah, sure. They think they are always proud of me. Yeah.
But the call of home, or whatever, for most kids is that do parents, I mean, I know that sometimes there's a big call for saying, okay, it's fine for you to go, but come back.
One piece.
Maybe, yeah, I come because there are a lot of vacations, and I also, because they earn the money to support me to study outside the country, and then it's my turn to take them, maybe travel around the world like that. Yeah.
One important, sorry, just to add a little bit, one important thing that we didn't mention at all is the single child policy. Most family has only one kid.
Yeah.
So in other countries, you might have 2 out of 3 kids that leaves home and stay abroad, but at least one is at home, But in China, there's only one. What can you do when you only have one kid, right?
And that plays into the bonding as well, we think.
Yes.
This friendship type of bonding where the social groups are very strong, and it's something that can actually instigate a trip on its own, be more important than the destination.
Yeah.
To add on to the one-child policy, actually Tier 1 cities, they are changing their regulation that if you reach a certain criteria, you could have a second child. But by choice, because it's too expensive to bring up a second child, so people are actually holding back of having a second child. Obviously, because they themselves, especially the millennials, will be single child family. So they are actually, it's like having only one stock in the basket. So you're putting all into one child, but giving the raising cost of living in China, especially in Tier 1 cities. So by choice, they do not want to take on the second child, even though there is the opportunity to do that.
Right, which is similar to what's happening in the West.
The amount of pressure that's put on millennials or any young people in China being the sole kind of family representative.
The talk about the cultural effect and the political effect of people traveling outside of the country, I think, is interesting, and we could probably talk all day about that. But I'm a little bit more curious from you, Marc. You carried out from, you said, okay, this is what people like about travel right now, and what would it look like 10 years out if we just kind of followed it to its natural conclusion? Well, we know there's going to be a lot of disruptions along the way and so forth. Have you put your mind behind any of those and thought about what some of those disruptions, what those major changes might look like in people's travel attitudes over the next 10 years coming out of China? Differences, what they might be looking for. How people who were wanting to invest now in what that future might look like, what they might start hanging their hat on.
Yeah. Well, I think what it's hard to, we don't have a crystal ball, but I think those insights are meant to focus on some area, which is the idea that travel is not just recreational, but it's formative in an affirmation of becoming an individual person into a big group. So it's kind of abstract. I'm not telling you what color will be the room of the hotel by telling you that. But I think for me, I mean, living in China, in Beijing, and in Hong Kong, but mostly in China, that's the key thing I take out of the insight we have. And yeah,
there's one trend that I personally foresee. We haven't talked about this, and that's this idea of the focus or the gaze shifting and finding these interesting things about China. And that could be this new trend of boutique hotels with 17 rooms. Whereas most people now are looking outside to find places that seem important enough to go visit. And the idea of this domestic travel, but not the bus tours and not Beijing and Shanghai, I think could be, I'm not saying it's going to be a huge trend, but I think it's going to be a very interesting niche trend that we see as people turning back to find out these little things about China.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just isolate it to you. If there's anybody else that's got insight, I'm curious. I think it's kind of interesting.
One of the things, if I think about that guiding opportunity, one of the things that we're trying to get our head around is we can think about that as a provision of services within destinations from an English-speaking perspective. But you know, there will need to be an increasing number of really well-informed, well-trained in hospitality Chinese people who are bilingual living in those places. So presumably there'll be a sort of like a travel diaspora of experience and informed Chinese young people.
I think our third concept,
serving.
I went quickly through it, but you can spend more time in the report. But our third concept, which is the brain trip, is based on basically building as a business a network of Chinese, putting in action a diaspora of Chinese guides, basically. Yeah. A Chinese Spanish guy who speaks Spanish, who live in Spain, but who can interact with the Chinese audience. And then that person would become a very powerful person, to start to aggregate vast number of
And on this very topic, when you do get the report, please take a look at the Xanadu interview, because they speak at length about this, the importance of the Mandarin-speaking, but also Italian-speaking or Spanish-speaking person who's living there and really has the depth of knowledge about cities.
So Xanadu today is already catering and organizing trips based around that. That means they have a guy in Italy, a Chinese person, who's going to be the guide for 10 people who are friends and who want to go to Italy, but they don't want to do the tourist, ordinary tourist trip thing. So they will find that Chinese Italian guide who will be also the driver, maybe in a minivan, and that's how they're going to do the trip. and Xanadu will facilitate the booking of a place. So it's the bonding thing. They go as a family or as a group of friends. They want something different. It's the learning thing, and obviously they want to escape. So it all come together. So some people are already doing that, but I think that's going to be the big trend. Xanadu is already doing this. At least, that's what they're talking about.
Is there much investment in when you're talking about, you're at the Guangzhou, there's a tourism school there, is there?
Yeah.
You know, you think that'd be quite a smart thing to do with your money is to invest in really top quality hospitality, education within China.
Oh, it's a
you know,
big
like you
challenge
think
for any hotel in China, of course.
you think about those sort of 20-somethings that you see behind a desk around the world, but you know, wherever you are, you know, they might be German or they might be French or Spanish or whatever. But presumably more and more will all be going to lots of places all around the world and being served by really trilingual Chinese, well-educated hospitality students.
I mean, that's obviously something that Shangri-La is doing.
Not enough.
No, not enough.
But to take away
being go ahead.
Well, I mean, to answer that question, just imagine, this is imaginative, right? Instead of building a 200-room hotel in one location, why don't we build 20 rooms in 10 locations and sell it as a package? So you buy 10 days of tour. You select, there's no plan, as what Zhongyi was trying to say. This is a destination. In 10 days, you can stay in all these 10 hotels or in one hotel or by choice. And or you actually buy into a experience, a tour experience. So let's say I want to have this emergent Tibetan religious experience, but then you can select different experiences, different activities, different learning experience, different catering experience. That adds to a point where you're buying into. Instead of just selling accommodation, if the accommodation can be diversified into that, that's something we should be looking into really.
And I think there's going to be a lot of disruption here because what you're describing could be done by, it could be another Uber, Airbnb was going to do that. So that's a big challenge, I think, for the big groups.
We did speak about this and we debated it, and I guess our impression was that it's the consolidation that has value to the Chinese audience for matters of brand reputation, for safety, because you can do all of this. You could book Airbnb, hire a personal guide here and there. First of all, you'd spend 3 weeks of your time just researching on the internet to find it. So there's value in somebody taking care of it. And then there's also the kind of stamp again, saying
the
this
safety,
is
the
okay.
assurance of
So
you are going to
I think the company was going to be able to aggregate all this experience and accommodation into one, easy to go package. Maybe it's going to be LUXE.
You had a question?
Yeah, just really quickly. It's I've gone out and seen a lot of Chinese travel agents that deal just specifically in Chinese business, and also Hong Kong Tourism Board is showing mainland Chinese business to Hong Kong is up 11%. Okay, but rate spent on accommodation is down 8%. Okay, that's a third-year trend in a row. Okay. Learning all these demographics are great. They're really good. They get us to know the customer a lot more. But show me the money. I'm here to make a profit. And I actually had one particular Chinese travel agent tell me last year, 2014, for the first time in the 20-year history of their company, they did more transactions than they ever did, and they didn't make any money. Less money than the prior 3 years.
Sorry, just to be clear, is this travel to Hong Kong? Okay. So you have to keep in mind that this is mostly shopping trips.
Well, yeah, but we all represent Hong Kong, right? We're interested in Hong Kong. I'm interested in Hong Kong. I want to know, where's the money? I know the money's going into shopping, but who do I need to talk to say, hey, look, I have a great bunch of hotels that give your generation absolutely everything they want and more than you can ask for at this price? I don't know. So that's my question. It's probably not an answer.
I'm not sure that I
So
have an
Monet
answer
is-
for that.
Is going to Europe, apparently.
Am I wrong?
Is that because Hong Kong as a destination is no longer that attractive to
This
Hong
is-
Kong, to mainland?
This is my gut
Hong Kong is
instinct.
really-
That's what we
For,
learned
for
from
and for the
studies.
demographic that we
Yeah.
just talked about, I think particularly Hong Kong is something that they've been going to more frequently as youngsters. I don't know that we can
So you
fully
get the-
consider your experience because you're from Guangzhou,
I'm
but
tired
still,
of Hong Kong, I'm gonna
people
go to Paris. Or I'm tired of Hong Kong, I'm gonna go to Tokyo, right? That kind of.
without any facts to back it up, that would be my gut.
So the M plus might be the answer.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
a
Hong
different
Kong
sort of cultural
needs
scene.
to find more attraction to
Absolutely.
travelers in general, I think.
Yeah, their central police station which will be opening soon, and M Plus, West Kowloon.
Yeah, but M Plus should have opened 10 years, 15 years ago. So that's the lag here.
Probably not the will that's just came up in Central. I think that's not the right attraction.
I haven't made the trip from Central to go see it, so I'm not sure that.
Time for drinks?
Yeah, please continue the conversation, but we'll release you. We have drinks outside, some finger foods, so please stay, mingle, meet everyone else here, and thank you all very much for your time.